Okay, guys, I think you two are the best teams we've judged today. So it's real time. We really can't decide, who's the best. Because you guys are really good debaters. So you should thank your teachers for training you guys so well. Yeah, we are really impressed. Okay. So yeah, because all of you did a very good job. Unlike the other teams from other schools, they have kind of imbalanced stuff. So thank your partners and your teachers. And for the evidence, we do see the conflicts. However, still we understand that you all agree on something, right? That delaying school hours would be good for your health. So we sort of decide that both sides arguments are legit. Yeah. So now it leaves us to decide on how you guys debate. So I'll leave that to Professor Lee.
Okay, yeah, I would like to say that this is the first time I've ever finished a debate and I wanted to see the evidence. Okay, usually it's just kind of like, okay, the evidence doesn't seem to play much of a role in deciding who wins or who loses. It was also nice that you guys actually had the whole article. Okay, I wasn't able to read in detail everything, but I was able to skim for what it was that I was looking for. And this was also, I think, the first time I had listened to a debate where you guys were not just taking the evidence that the other team says and then just saying, okay, I guess that's true. You guys were prepared to say, okay, well, what about the subjects? How did they do the study? What is really the conclusion? So it was fun to do that. Now, what was kind of confusing was it seemed like, you were saying one version, they were saying another version, so that's why we felt like, okay, well, let's take a look. All right. So let me just focus my first comments on the evidence. I think it's important really to look at the evidence. Now, it seemed like you used the issue about the 8 to 10 hours is because it was sponsored by a drug company, right? And was that the Israel evidence, right? Or was that another different evidence?
It's the National Sleep Foundation.
The National Sleep Foundation wanted evidence. And that was your evidence, right? Okay, I think that was in Chinese, right? Or English? It was English? Can I see that again? I thought it was the Israel evidence. So I was looking through that, and I saw in that, though, that they referenced other previous, or just stated as almost like fact that students need like 8 to 9 so many hours of sleep. Well, I guess it is, yeah. So they need to get 8.5 to 9.5 hours sleep. So what National Sleep Foundation? How do we know this is funded by a drug company? Is it said?
It's from their
Oh, it's from your
It's
evidence.
from that article. So show us.
Okay. All right. I guess I. All right. Now, what I would say is, I think, again, I'd have to get into details and try to understand what is this National Sleep Foundation. But I would say that I think their response to your criticism, just because it's funded by a drug organization, if it can be pretty independently done and monitored, etc., then in a sense, it's still valid, just because the funding. Now, I think what I actually wanted to say was the other article about the one in Israel seemed very academic. It's published in a journal, everything. So even though it might have been funded by a drug company, it's a pretty legitimate conclusion. It was probably, there were editors for the journal, and so it wasn't just randomly accepted. Okay, so anyway, but again, 8 to 10 hours. I think both of you guys came to the agreement that there are many factors in terms of how many hours somebody may get. What are the reasons for not getting enough sleep? So with this debate, it seems like the real issue is there's a combination of how many hours of sleep you need, as well as when you need to go to sleep and when you can get up. And it seems like, again, even in this one here, the focus isn't on how many hours you need, but when you need to get up or when you need to go to school. So I don't know if there's really much disagreement about, adolescents need like 8.5 to 9.25 hours of sleep. They were saying there's another one 8 to 10. I don't know how you got 8 to 10 from 8.5 to 9.25. You may want to use the exact amount that they state here. And so the number of hours, if you need that, you need to get it. Now, let's get to the issues at hand. What we really need to do to decide who wins or who loses the debate is really about the stop issues. And for the harms, I think both of you agreed that, well, when you start school is important because of when you get up, when you need to get up. And so for that, it seems like there really wasn't no need to debate that. The important thing I think seems like it's like, when do you get out? You decided to push back so you could keep all the hours the same. But compared to theirs, they actually made it 3. So really there's a difference of 2 hours, 3 to 5. I think if you had held the position that people are able to pursue their interests, there's no problem with that, that therefore we don't need any more extra hours to pursue their interests, or maybe other kind of argument. But it seemed like you agreed that because of the 108, that students just aren't getting enough opportunity to find their interest. So that's why the 108 has this flexible schedule plan to allow them to have this choice and get rid of some of the mandatory courses. So by admitting that there is a problem with finding interest, then the question becomes, does their plan solve it? Okay? Or is your minor change going to solve it? And I would agree with them that probably your minor change hurts it more than solves it, just because in a sense you're giving them less time, even without their plan, using an extra hour in the afternoon. Now you did say, well, they can go to sleep later, but then, again, I don't know. I think that's not a convincing argument, to me, to say, well, if you don't have enough time to do things, just go to sleep later, especially since the whole issue is about sleep. Okay, to fall back to that kind of a response, I think, was not a good choice. I think it would have been better to maybe say something like, well, look, they have the whole weekend. Who cares about they lose an extra hour from 4 to 5, 4 days or 5 days a week? They already have a whole weekend to pursue their interests. So, is this really a big deal? If they're not using that time to pursue their interests, are they really going to pursue their interests because you now are giving them another 10 hours a week or something? Okay? That would make more of an argument than trying to say, well, just go to bed at midnight. Okay? Anyway, you go to bed an hour later and do it after school. In terms of, let's see, where should I go? We're out of time. So, I think I like this debate also because I felt like the affirmative was able to get their plan out in the first affirmative constructive. There have been too many debates that I've watched where, oh, and then my partner is going to give the details. Well, that's not good for the negative. So it was thank you that you were able to get enough of the details. Though I think there were some things about like teaching methods that didn't quite make it into the first affirmative. So it would have been better if you had included that in the first affirmative. So other things in terms of just debating technique, because I think you guys are pretty good already. Let me just see if I can help you to say, okay, as you're debating, what are some of the things you can do? For the second negative constructive, you repeated what the first negative constructive said and says, well, it's funded by a drug company, so we can't trust it. Well, the first negative constructive already said it. What you should have done is you should have said, look, the second affirmative constructive did not respond at all to our accusation that their evidence is not reliable. So therefore, obviously, they must, have, conceded that argument. So therefore, it's clearly not reliable. Okay, make a stronger statement like that rather than just repeating. Okay, you have to kind of assume that we have been taking good notes and we will remember, what was said. Often those kinds of things about what arguments were dropped, etc., should have been done by the negative rebuttal. So even if the second negative constructive didn't say it, the first negative rebuttal, we should be trying to think what statements, what arguments got dropped by the other team. And then to point that out to say, look, they didn't make any arguments against this, because when you get to the rebuttal, you're out of time to make new arguments about things. The other thing too is I think about this 54% of elementary school students didn't have enough time versus 69.3 middle schoolers. What I was looking for in the third or the first affirmative rebuttal would have been to say, all right, we're not saying that giving more time by having less time in school is going to give everybody will be happy with that, and that it'll be like 0%, right? But you can already see that middle schoolers in Taiwan spend more time in school. They go from 8 to 4 than the elementary school. They're 8 to 3. So that 1 extra hour had a decrease of 14.3% of people who felt they didn't have enough time. We're even giving them another hour because it's 9 to 3. So we may, if we predict, we might have only 30-some% who feel they don't have enough time. Well, that's a big improvement from 69%, 30-some%. Half. We've cut down to half of people who feel like they don't have enough time. So part of a policy debate is you don't have to solve it perfectly, but if you can make a significant improvement, it's usually good enough. So I think that would have been a good response to say, this is actually even good evidence. Thank you for pointing that out, that actually spending less time in school is going to, give you more time to pursue your interests. Okay? So, so sometimes I know, being in debate, I was in debate in high school, and in the midst of all of this, your mind is kind of, so this is again why it's a team sport. And so sometimes what you need to do is, especially like, let's say, the first speakers, once your constructive is done, your kind of, cross-examination is done, don't just go and say, now it's time to just wait until, time to go home. You need to be helping your partners. So when you think of things, talk to them, help them, because they're in the midst of, oh no, I got my constructive speech in a minute. What am I going to say? What am I going to say? The more you help them, the better you work as a team. But overall, I'm really being picky. So ultimately, it was hard for us to decide. But taking the overall thing, and I think the fact that, for me, the fact that you guys kind of retreated a little bit too much and provided your solution or minor changes that look too close to some of the stuff that they wanted to do. That I just felt like, I think they won, but like a 2-1. Okay? So, and that was the consensus. It was a unanimous vote that, they won by 2-1. Okay? But I think, if you guys had it to do it all over again, it probably might go the other way. But I was really impressed by, like I said, the first time I've ever heard people actually try to challenge evidence. And so I really commend you for that. I think that maybe you need to think about your position, what kind of position. If you really are going to sort of say, yes, some of these problems exist, then I would, well, it's too late now, we're all done for the year. But I would have recommended that you might want to think of developing a counter plan. More full-fledged, don't just take the 108 and pretty much take it as it is. Try to do something that's even better than what they're offering. Okay? All right. So thank you, and I hope you guys come back next year, because I think at the level you are in debating, what year are you? Freshmen, sophomores, juniors?
We're juniors.
She's a sophomore? All sophomores?
I
Okay.
should definitely come back next year.
If you guys come back next year, I think you will be raising the level of the kind of debate that we will see here, in the debate tournaments. So again, it's hard to lose, but don't be too proud. You only won kind of by a hair. It's hard to decide. But I think, if you guys continue to work on this and come back next year, I think, it'll be even better. Okay? So thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, now please head back to the International Conference Hall. We'll have a general discussion about the debate and the certificate presentation.